buscado, ni a sabios ni a ricos, tan solo quieres que yo te siga.
Welcome to your cathedral. I'm Father Greg Sack with special thanks once again to Mark Teresi and David Jonas. David and Mark, thank you from the bottom of my heart for beautiful music week in and week out. Special thanks again to Lori Doyle, who is a director, producer, choreographer, does everything to bring the whole package together, does a beautiful job with a smile. So Lori Doyle, thank you from the bottom of my heart. We are celebrating the 12th Sunday in Ordinary Time. It's hard to believe that we're approaching the end of June, the start of summer, but June's only about another week to go. True story. As a little boy, my favorite summer day was June 24th. My favorite day in summer, every year as a boy, June 24th. Why? On June 24th, we celebrate the feast of John the Baptist. In my house, we were not allowed to go swimming until John the Baptist blessed the water on June 24th. I come from a Polish background. In my home, we were let out of school about June 6th or June 7th, and so 2 weeks earlier, sometimes 3 weeks earlier, and all my friends, my grammar school buddies, were swimming, but I wasn't allowed in the water until John the Baptist blessed the water on June 24th. I would argue with my mother as an 8-year-old or 10-year-old, but Mom, where did this Polish custom come from? And all my Polish buddies are able to swim except me. They get to go swimming and they're Polish except me. My mom would say, wait until June 24th. And this would go on and on. My mother would say she came from a home, in her home, couldn't go swimming until June 24th, came from her mother, goes back to Poland, a long time Polish tradition going back centuries. Yet, I'd always say to my mother, I'm so frustrated, nobody in the Polish community of my friends heard of this tradition. And I once said to my mother, I said, Mom, what if John the Baptist blessed the water on August 24th? Mother would say, well, take up bowling. You're lucky it's June 24th and not August 24th. And so this will go on every year. But speaking of water and the strong winds and the frustration sometimes of life and the hardships of life, sometimes the waters of our life are very turbulent. Sometimes in life, the waters in our life are calm. Other times they're very turbulent, the ups and downs of life. And sometimes the winds in our lives blow calm, sometimes they blow very hard and very choppy and turbulent. In light of today's gospel, this 12th Sunday of Ordinary Time, how do we handle the turbulent and choppy waters that we sometimes call life? We allow the Lord Jesus to enter the restless waters of my life. At times we're feeling lost, unsettled, unhappy, bitter, frustrated, angry, unforgiving, lacking purpose, lacking direction, or a sense of feeling needed. When those winds howl and cause the waters of my life to become choppy, roaring, and turbulent, and very wavy, where do I turn? There have been times, and so many times in my own life, when I did not understand why things happened as they did. Only in retrospect did the plan of God begin to unfold. Only much later can I look back and thank God. There are other times, I must admit, I simply do not understand how the plan of God in my life is unfolding. True story. My dad was a very private person. I know very little bit about my dad's childhood. I do know that at the age of 10, my father was 10, in 1933, they lost their business in Chicago during the height of the Depression, settled in southern Illinois on a small farm, had that for 4 years, and came back to Chicago in 1937 in the old Polish neighborhood, Milwaukee, Division, Lubantia, around Holy Trinity, St. Santos Koska, in that area. And they bought, my dad's parents in 37 bought a tavern run by my grandma and grandpa, the old Polish neighborhood. My dad was a very kind man, was never a troublemaker in the neighborhood, always helping other people, and he had a great outgoing personality. He did in later years become a broadcaster on WGN radio with some television. But when my grandparents had a tavern during World War II, my dad was a bartender and a bouncer in the tavern in the old Polish neighborhood. My dad was 6 foot and 240 pounds, a very strong man. After marriage in 1952, he put on some weight, didn't have the strength he did back in his younger day in the 40s. So in 1971, my dad moved to Las Vegas, Nevada to do radio and TV when I was 18 years old. The waters of life, called relationships, don't always run smooth. So how do we ride out the storms of life called rejection, failure, miscommunication, and hurt? You see, when I was 14 years old, my parents separated. My parents divorced in 1969 when I was 16. My dad was 18. He moved out to Vegas to do radio and TV. So where do we turn and whom do we trust when the waters get choppy and turbulent? True story about my dad. About 40 years ago, I was coming from a wedding reception, and a gentleman stopped me and said, "Is your father Sig Sakowicz?" I said, "Yes, he is. He's doing radio and TV out in Vegas." He said, "Let me tell you a story." He said, "When your dad was the bouncer in the tavern during the war, he was saying one night on a Saturday night, 'Okay, guys, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, Saturday to Sunday, time to lock up, go home, go to bed.'" And one of the patrons, how should I put it? He said a bad word to my father, very bad, called him a bad name. And my dad and this guy said, "Your father threw him through a wall." So it's very, very nice. My dad threw a guy through a wall. I'm not sure I believed it. 10 years go by, I'm coming from a wake. Another guy stops me and says, "Is your father Sig Sakowicz?" I said, "Yeah, my dad's getting older, formerly radio and TV in Chicago." He said, "Let me tell you a true story." He said, during the war, one night we were all at your dad's grandparents' tavern, and your dad is locking up. I said, "Okay, guys, 2 o'clock in the morning, time to lock up, go home, go to bed." And same thing. He said, "This guy called your dad a very bad name," or said something that is not exactly bozo appropriate. He said, "Your dad threw him through a wall." I said, "Wow, 2 different guys, same story. Interesting." Fast forward the clock, it's now 2003 in November. My dad is now dying in Vegas. I go see him, and the first thing I said to my dad was, I said, "Dad, I know very little about your past. I need to ask you a question. When you were a young man, a bartender and bouncer in Grandma and Grandpa's tavern, did you throw a guy through a wall?" My dad kind of looked at me, smiled, and said, "Greg, it was a thin wall." That's all he said, and my dad then changed the subject. I spent 2 days with my father, 2 wonderful days, came back to Chicago. It was the last time I saw my dad alive. The waters of our life don't always run smoothly, and the winds of unrest and shattered dreams sometimes blow strong. So it's never a question of are we hurting, but rather where are we hurting? It's not a question of are we hurting, but rather where are we hurting? From what loss or pain? And so we all carry a lot of disappointment, frustration, and at times sadness. Whenever we deny that we're wounded, We prepare the perfect breeding ground for bitterness, anger, cynicism, coldness, and rage. When we don't recognize and accept our wounds and frustrations, we easily grow cold, we can grow hard, and toughen our skins, minds, and hearts. Sometimes the hardest part of life is moving on. Beautiful line I once heard, things we take in quietly come out in noisy ways. But there's another option, grieving, mourning, and tears. When we grieve, we soften rather than harden our hearts in the face of loss. Let's realize it is only God who can fill in all those places where we are angry, feeling helpless, lost, jealous, restless, or broken. I'd like to add, only the Lord Jesus can calm the storms within our hearts. The storms in life, they'll come. At times, we are terrified. The turbulent waters and the winds of life will be calmed if we turn our sail in the Lord's direction. In life, act as if everything depended upon you, and trust as if everything depended upon God. May God bless you. Enjoy summer.
Tú has venido a la ría, no has buscado ni a sabios ni a ricos, tan solo quieres que yo te siga, Señor.